Today we begin our lessons with percentages, and today we're going to understand percent notation. We're going to write equivalent fractions, decimals, and percents. And as with other lessons, we do have a couple of standards that we will be addressing. The first one is 6RP3. And then the second is 6RP3C. Excuse me. So percents, like ratios, are used to compare two quantities. And percents will always compare one quantity to 100. Okay, and that's what percent means. It means it's out of 100. So we have a picture here of 100 squares, and we have some that are filled in. And we filled in 45 of the squares. So as a fraction, you could write 45 over 100. As a ratio, you could write 45 to 100, which would be squares filled in to all the squares. And then our percentage would then be 45% because it's 45 out of the 100. And then we can look at it another way. If we're looking at what's not shaded, we would have 55% not shaded, since 55 plus 45 is 100. So when writing a percentage, it's sometimes easiest to start by figuring out what the fraction would be. So 72 out of 100 cats are long-haired cats. What percent of the cats are long-haired cats? Well, let's start by writing what fraction are long-haired cats, and that fraction would be 72 over 100. And since a percent is out of 100, we already have that being out of 100, so our percentage would be 72%. Excuse me. Our next example, a fruit display of 50 apples has 43 green ones. What percent of the apples are green? So again, we could start with what fraction are green, and that would be 43 out of 50. So again, fractions or percents, percents are out of 100. So we look at our denominator there, and our denominator is 50. Well, we could very easily convert that to 100 by multiplying it by 2, which means we'd have to multiply the 43 by 2, which gives us an equivalent fraction of 86 over 100. And now that it's out of 100, our percentage would be 86%. I'll scroll down a little bit here for part C. I'll extend my page to give me a little bit more room to work with. Of the 2,000 people at a concert, 240 are teachers. The rest are students. What percent of the people at the concert are students? So this one requires us to take an additional step before we write our fraction or our percentage, because we only know how many are teachers. We don't know how many are students. But since we know how many total people are there, and we know that there are 240 teachers, and they're split up into two groups, either students or teachers, we do some subtraction, do some borrowing here, and we would find that there are 1,760 students. So what fraction of the people are students? That'd be 1,760 over 2,000. Excuse me. Since they both end in 0, we can eliminate those zeros. And to get that denominator to be 100, we would divide 200 by 2, which means we take 176 divided by 2. That would give us 88 over 100. So our percentage would be 88%. Out of 25 chairs, 14 are brown. What percent of the chairs are brown? So again, we'd start with what fraction are brown. We get that denominator to be 100 by multiplying it by 4. So we take 14 times 4. That'll give us a fraction of 56 over 100, which means we would be at 56%. And so for number 2, of the 400 animals in a zoo, 32 were monkeys. So what percent of the animals were monkeys? Well, we start with our fraction of 32 400ths. We can get that 400 to 100 by dividing by 4. I take 32 divided by 4, which gives us 8 over 100, which is 8%. And then for part B, what percent of the animals were not monkeys? Well, in this case, we only have two categories. We have monkeys or not monkeys. So what we can do is, since they're all animals, that'd be 100%. 8% are monkeys, which means 92% are not monkeys. And lastly today, we're going to take percents and write them as fractions or as decimals. Well, as we've established, percents mean out of 100. So 24% as a fraction would be 24 over 100, which would then simplify down to 6/25. We want to express 78% as a decimal. Well, we could start with a fraction, which would be 78 over 100. And the proper name for that fraction is 78 hundredths, which means as a decimal, it would be 0.78. So another way that we can express a excuse me, a percent as a decimal, you start with the number you're given and you take off the percent sign. You take the decimal point. In this case, it doesn't have one, so I'll put it here at the end. And you move it 2 places to the left, and we get the same answer of 78 hundredths. So for 3, 4, and 5 here, we want to express each percent as a fraction or a mixed number in simplest form. So number 3 would start off as 48 over 100. Divide both of those by 4 to get 12/25. Number 4, 55 over 100. Divide both those by 5 to get 11/20. And then number 5 would start as 108 over 100. So that will give me the mixed number of 1 and 8 hundredths, which would then simplify down to 1 and 2/25. For number 6, if we have 13%, we move that decimal point 2 places to the left, we're going to get 0.13. For number 7, if we have 8%, we move that decimal point 2 places to the left, we would actually get 0.08, not 0.8. That's a big common mistake here. People will put 0.8, but that's 8/10. We want 8 hundredths. And then for number 8, we get 1.26. So we move that decimal point 2 places to the left. And that is all for today's lesson. I hope this helps.